go ahead and call the April 19th, 2012 Police Pension Relief Fund Board meeting to order. Let's get the roll call form. First meeting is being notified. First item on the agenda is report from the financial consultants.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. We've got good numbers to report for you today. While it is the end of March report, as customary, the quarter-end report, all the fact sheets and fund information that we normally provide for you will be in the quarter that lags because we're still compiling information from some of the alternative managers. If you open up your books and look to March, you see that the plan closed the balance at $43,313,839. Add in just shy of $30,000 of accrued income brings you to $43,342. As we mentioned, the first quarter came in here in January and February. We've had really solid numbers coming right out of the chute to begin the year. March was no different, up 1.08% for the month versus the 118 blended, bringing your quarter-to-date returns to 584. Keeping in mind that the PRISA, we've just got some preliminary numbers of being up 3.28% for the quarter, is not included in that calculation. And the Goldman Sachs number also is not included in that information for the month of March. They're still compiling that information. So not having the March Goldman number and not having the 328 from PRISA will increase that 584 for you next time we come into the meeting. Kind of discussing what's taken place over the first quarter and kind of where we are today. Really have continued that trend that we've been talking about in the last couple of meetings, where the fourth quarter rally that was more or less the lower quality rally and the thinner rally really snowballed into money managers and hedge fund managers not affording to sit on the sidelines and pumping money into the equity markets. That's continued to transpire over the course of March. Really solid numbers all the way across. We started getting into April, and we had, I'd say, the first 15 days out of April were a little choppy. We had some pullbacks into the marketplace, primarily due to the European situation. But as the case in much of the first quarter, every time we gave up a little bit, we kind of clawed back. So while the markets took out about 3% during the time period of April, your plan as of last night's close is 528, again excluding those numbers from PRISA and Goldman. So not very much give back at all through the month of April. We're continuing to see some trends that are some good signs in the domestic economies. Spain actually had a debt auction today that was well subscribed. That led to having the futures up this morning and having a positive open. Those are certainly good signs that we see. If you recall, the 2011, the first quarter and the second quarter, the market just shrugged off any bad news that came out of Europe. Third quarter was a different story. Fourth quarter shrugged off the bad news again. First quarter, almost like it wasn't even there. And now that we're getting into April, we're starting to see some more of the concerns over into the European theater. So we're keeping that on the forefront, playing defensive. And really, anytime you're up, close, probably when we get the numbers adjusted, you're going to be close pushing 6% for the first quarter. You start thinking about in your minds playing defense, and certainly what happened for 2011, where you really rocketed off the first 5 months of that year before the market started to pull back. So taking in consideration where bond rates have moved, if you take where we ended in December, we were about a 188 on the 10-year. We moved to about a 221 on the 10-year. Since this report of March 31st, where we closed out at a 221, we hit 198 again on the 10-year. So you're talking about a lot of volatility happening to the risk-free market. And just to put that into a number, as we always like to do, how we're positioning our fixed income exposure. If you went out and you bought that 5-year Treasury, and we had a 1.5% move on the 5-year Treasury, it would result in an 11% loss on the person who actually holds that bond. So we talked about it before. You can lose money in fixed income. Certainly, as we've been now dragging on to 3 and 4 years here of being down at really low interest rate levels, we've got to be mindful of the things on the back end of the curve. So the shorter you stay, the lower interest rate sensitivity you have. Also, the more concentration in credit, it will dampen that volatility a little bit, because the Treasury market is directly tied to interest rates. So as we're starting to kind of see things in position, We're always anticipating that rates will go up. We don't think the front end of the curve will make any changes anytime soon, but the market can always drive the back end of the curve, which is going to be really your 10 years and out. One manager that really had a tough year in 2011, the Goldman Sachs Strategic Income Fund, because it's designed to be interest rate sensitive, except for when you have vast moves in the market. We had that 30% move in the 30-year bond that hurt them last year, being down 2% for a fixed income manager. But this year, first quarter, they were up 4.5%, where you had the U.S. Treasury 30-year was down 3% for the quarter. They were up 4.5%, so they're doing their job now, and that's what we want inside the portfolio, which is a kind of a dampener to rising interest rates. Annualized since inception returns at the close of this book, 666. Wish Jenny could have rounded that number up to a 667, make sure things were still kind of going off the right way, but that's where it fell in, and our blended bogey return at a 532. Any questions with the front page? Okay, let's go ahead and flip over to the pie chart, and we'll take a look at all the positions versus going one by one and see kind of where we stack up. As you can see, cash, just a small sliver there, 182. We have had some disbursements out of the account recently, going to the checking account to make payments and withdrawals. Going around the curve, you see at 2 o'clock growth is 14.24 versus value being at right at 11 o'clock in the pie chart at 8.7. That has still been by design. At some point in time, I've said over the last course of a few meetings that we would be adding in some large cap value. Depending on how you're tracking large cap value, as Goldman sheets say, value was up about 4% for the year, where growth was up 15 and change. So the move of bringing out of value into growth certainly hasn't hurt you. It's helped you when you're talking about a 3-to-1 type move over into growth versus value. Continuing around the curve, if you look at 6 o'clock on the pie chart, your sector, that's REITs, oil and gas, which is going to be your MLP plays, just shy of 15%. Had a conference call last week with some MLP outlook for the year. Continue to be positive there. One thing that is interesting is you're starting to see some growth of some MLPs out there. And what I mean by that, there's not any new companies starting out, because remember, it's a high barrier to entry business to go build these pipelines and this infrastructure. But what you're seeing are some of the corporations that already exist out there are changing their structure from maybe a C or an S corporation into a partnership between the MLPs, and they're doing that for tax purposes. So, where we were, it's probably 78 MLPs a year ago, 2 years ago. We're getting about 91 MLPs out there now. So, security selection is still becoming important in that space, but we still like the drivers. We like the escalators. Even though natural gas prices have really plummeted, maybe even be a soft word, it hasn't affected MLPs, because remember, the price of the underlying commodity has no bearing on their profitability. They're strictly pushing volume, pushing product through the pipeline. So these guys have to move their product by pipelines, and it's a good space for us. Continuing around, large cap blend, 2.81%. While we're really not in that value direct play, we do have the blends, which we've gone into, where you've got a little bit of growth, a little bit of value, so it's a manager who does both versus being strictly style specific in whether growth or value. The other at 19.18%, that's going to be your real estate, that's going to be your mezzanine, and that's going to be your Goldman Commodity Opportunities. We're going to talk here in a minute. We mentioned in the last meeting when we had our friends from Capital Point Partners down and gave us the update. We mentioned that we were going to be conducting a due diligence trip down to Houston. That'll take place on the 30th of this month. Larry or Alex, any questions or comments?
We are in earnings period. It's going to be critical that we continue to see good reports on the earnings front. So far, so good. I think Bank of America was maybe a little shy this morning, but extraordinary items on their side. But overall, I think financials have shown a little bit better pace than maybe what was expected. I don't know if that's going to hold up long term. And the rest of the market, so far on the earnings front, we've got 2 big weeks here. Fed Open Market Committee meets next week. It's going to be important that Bernanke somehow starve off some of the other Fed governors that are becoming more hawkish. I think they need to keep a relative, you might say, speech in place that shows somewhat easement from the economy standpoint. I think as far as pulling back right now and taking more of a hawkish, I can't get it out, hawk approach, would probably be detrimental to the market. So I don't really see that happening. I think they'll probably continue to see rates posed in the same direction. Other than that, that's pretty much it from our standpoint. Earnings, though, are key for us going forward.
Anything else? Okay, thank you all.
Thanks, y'all.
Less short and sweet, Wendy. Good numbers come fast.
Keep sending me on anything on drop.
See how
So
good-
that we
Okay,
appreciate
the way
it.
it went
Yeah,
this month.
went real well. I think that helped us a lot, just kind of
And
anticipating
about that
that.
time frame and
Yep.
everything good?
Yep,
Okay.
very much so.
We'll do it.
See y'all. Have a good, well,
See y'all later.
sure,
Thanks.
good to see y'all.
Bye.
All right.
Let me know. I'll take advantage and get some free investment advice on another issue. Okay, Tom's not here. Probably means he doesn't have the resolution ready. I don't know, have you heard from him?
I have not, Kathy, you haven't either.
Okay, I guess we'll have to probably table that.
We'll follow up with him.
Roger is not here.
By the way, Roger called and has a conflict this morning. He did say that he has attended the Joint Retirement Committee meeting and has been in touch with David. There's no delays new happening. And on the same note, Mr. Chairman, Rusty called, or actually texted last night. He's had surgery, so that's the reason for the record that he's not here. Speaking of,
There it is. Just table you next month with you, with Maureen.
Well, I actually have something to report.
Sarah said there's, so you're up.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I was in conference. Have you mentioned the situation?
No.
Okay, we have a situation, and I want to tell you how I see it coming down. One of our,
Let me, is this regarding, you as general counsel or another issue?
well, as council,
Okay, I just wanted to clarify.
we have a member who is in the hospital and is very ill. And he's still in the hospital, right?
Yes, let me catch them up on it though,
Okay.
if that's
Wait,
okay.
well,
But-
hold on.
No, it has nothing to do with either one of these.
Okay, that's what I was asking, okay. Kid,
He hadn't seen the agenda, so he didn't know what's on the agenda
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay.
You want him to speak on A then first?
if you don't mind, I'd like to,
You have a
kind of,
resolution.
if there's other items.
I've got one, but it's not final.
Okay. The resolution's not final yet, so could we table that one?
All right, then B,
Do you have a resolution?
No?
Ferris spoke on that one last month.
That
Didn't you,
was the
Ferris,
one
about a
you had talked
resolution
about.
on the widows?
yes, sir.
And I sent that out to everybody.
I
And
think,
so changed.
yeah, I think the last correspondence was, I'm trying to remember, and there may have been a second one, but the first resolution dealt with a different
A
statute.
different statute, and then the second resolution answered that.
Okay, I don't recall receiving it, but I mean, it's certainly not a problem to deal with it next month.
Let me ask if we do that, and apologize. The,
now you wanna talk about the
Now-
item that's not on the,
now I want to talk about the other part.
Okay, we have a retired police officer that is in the hospital. Well, his daughter called me wanting to know could his death benefit be made payable to her. Well, in the past, I was told by legal that it had to be made payable to the estate of him, or if he had a spouse, it could be made payable to the spouse. So that's how we've handled this in the past. Well, she just was real adamant and wasn't happy with that answer, so I asked Tom to research it for us and give us an answer on it, if it could be made payable to her.
And, the way, this is what I came to, I wanted to discuss with y'all, the way the statute is written, evidently, we've treated the death benefit as a $6,500 benefit. What the statute actually says, the statute takes it out of being a survivor benefit. It's a separate benefit in and of itself. So that, being able to say, I want my daughter to receive this, I want my son to receive this, is something that I don't think that the member has. What it says in the statute is whenever an active or retired police officer dies, the Board of Trustees shall appropriate from a fund the sum of not less than $100 nor more than $6,500 to pay the funeral expenses of the decedent. Now, if you have a normal funeral with a casket and all that goes with that, you're going to eat the $6,500 pretty quickly. And I haven't heard that we've had any problems come up as to whether they're actually using the $6,500. But for example, and more and more people are doing this, if you have a cremation, it may not cost $6,500. And the way that the statute is written, you would pay up to the cost of you pay $100 as your bottom line. You've got to pay $100. But then, if the actual cost of the funeral is less than the $6,500, the way that it says in the statute is you would pay that amount. You wouldn't pay $6,500 because it's not a survivor benefit. It's really a death benefit that belongs with the member himself. And I wanted to let y'all know that.
I have not reviewed the statute, but I can give you a little bit of history, and I know Lee certainly can, because he's been involved in it for years. But originally, the statute was written, and it was defined, as I understand, or as I recall, as a death or as a funeral benefit, I believe. The statute was reworked 6 years ago, maybe 8, to be defined rather than a funeral benefit as a death benefit, to add a little more, if you will, flexibility in terms of what members can do. Because, in other words, and I think you made the point right there. Sometimes final expenses are more, and then sometimes they're less. And it was the intent of everyone at that time to make it where it really doesn't matter. It's a death benefit that goes to, and I thought whomever the officer wanted it to go to. Now, I may have told him wrong, I received a call from this person earlier on, a couple of months ago, I suppose, and I asked him to call you. You know, some of these officers don't have wills, and some of them, you know, they don't have trust or anything. And I think what we have tried to do, and we've run into different issues over the years, is make sure that it's going, cover ourselves, but make sure it's going to who they want it to go to. And that's nothing legal. I'm just.
Well, no, but let me point on, there is a section in the statute that says the Board of Trustees may change the amount of funeral expenses payable under this section, but in that instance, the amount shall be uniformly distributed likewise. I think that y'all can have a formal policy that does this. I haven't seen a formal policy that deals with the death benefit. And so the question that I've got is, and maybe we should put this on the agenda for next month, is to have a formal policy that deals with death benefit, who we're going to take it to, if you wanted to be able to go to somebody else or to go to the funeral home. There's all kinds of ways to do it, and I don't care how it's done, but I think we need to have a formal policy to do it, and I haven't found that there is one. And I don't wanna make up a formal policy, I want to be told what needs to be in the formal policy and deal with it that way. Because, I mean, you know, some places can assign it to a funeral home, well, we may not wanna do that. Some places can give it to the widow, some may wanna give it to the estate, but if you give it to the estate, it really kind of kills the concept of the death benefit because it sits around in the estate for a period of time and then you make a claim against the state and pay it back. My experience is they won't bury somebody until the amount's paid in full. So I can see why we wouldn't want to just pay it to the estate necessarily. And I don't know what you would like in that, but I think it's important to have this as a formal policy of the board on this expenditure.
And I may be wrong on this, but, and somebody help think back, but, and I think it was John Pease probably, but we did address to some extent, obviously it didn't make it to a formal policy, but we did address, I think at one time to some extent, specifics in terms of a meeting of how it would be handled.
You're
Am I
right.
right or wrong?
Yeah, we had one officer that had passed away, had no family, and had a lady that was taking care of him, and was no kin to him. And she took care of the burial, and we sent the $6,500 to her.
Right.
And I just remember that instance, but it's like you said, if it goes into the state and everything, and probated and everything, it takes years, everything to get it, so I would like to see it go to whoever is taking care of the officer. Wrap that up.
But how would we know who that would be?
Next of kin, first, and then that was a rare instance where the.
See, in this case, there's 4 siblings.
Yeah, I would just say
There's him.
something like the person responsible for the, you know, there's usually one person that is responsible for the,
How do we know who that person is when there's 4 siblings and there's no power of attorney, you know, there's no guardianship, there's no, so how would Kathy and I know to just take this one sibling's word for it that she's getting the 6,500 versus the other 3?
I think that what I need to perhaps do is this. Why don't I develop sort of some checklists of ideas and send that out to y'all by email and get responses, and then I can draft a policy based upon those responses, and on the ones where there's disagreement, I can put alternatives there, and then that become an issue for discussion, because otherwise this would be forever today. And in the meantime, this gentleman wants to have this given to his daughter, and I think that if that's what we wish to allow him to do, we ought to formally ratify that today, because he may not live a month. I don't know what situation he's in, but that would take care of that situation in the interim, and we could also take care of any other situation in the interim, that if it's designated by the member, then that's who we'll go to until we get a formal policy.
What, do you need a motion to that effect? Until a policy can be formulated, I would make a motion to allow each member to designate who the beneficiary of the death benefit will be. Is that basically the motion?
Second.
so moving properly second, discussion. Have we heard from the officer or from the
Daughter.
daughter?
That's my
That's,
concern.
I think we should hear from the member.
Yeah, I think we've
Right.
got I don't know what condition
I don't
he's in,
either.
but
I'll follow up with the daughter and see
even if
what the
it's,
steps.
even if it's a handwritten note or something.
Notarized
Yeah.
thing.
Well, he may not be in a position to write any note or speak.
Right.
And it sounds like he's at the end of his life to me, and most people can't write for memory.
Well, that's why I brought it up, because we're about to
Mhm.
try to deal with this situation, and it was very specific that the member had to designate, and that,
I think, does he have a wife?
No.
We had kind of a similar situation in that my mother wasn't able to do anything, and what we were looking towards doing, because there were 4 siblings and I was the one in charge, my other siblings wrote a letter and had it notarized saying they wanted me to be the designated one. And so that way, there was at least agreement among the siblings that there wasn't going to be any kind of a backlash in that situation. Now, I don't know, I know that's a nice situation. A lot of situations aren't like that, where the siblings don't agree, but that's the whole point here, is that if the member can't designate and has not in some formal way, and we give something to one sibling and the others say, no, that's not at all what happened, you know, we got a problem. But at least if the other siblings state they're in agreement, you're past that.
Would it be possible for us to get such an agreement, Counselor?
Yeah, that's common in the states where people basically waive their,
Was there any way we could contact this daughter and see if she could provide us with such an agreement and make the motion?
Well, if the member himself or can't is unable to designate, then maybe we can amend the motion to say, and/or the other direct beneficiaries agree, you know, to a designee.
Back a couple of months ago, when I talked to the daughter, I suggested specifically that because she had told me there was no will. I said, well, really, you need to get something in writing from him, designating you, and that's what I suggested, and I didn't hear anything else about it, so I assumed. Well, I don't mind
Amending the motion, Mr. Chairman, I think I need to, in the event members unable to sign, would
I would say a waiver or the person with an irrevocable power of attorney. And because, and what that does is if you've got the waiver from the other children or from the other claimants, then you don't have a problem. If somebody's been given the irrevocable power of attorney to designate, then that's just the same as the member. And that gets us through a month.
that's my motion, that's my amendment to my motion.
Don, I think you seconded, do you agree to that amendment?
Do you agree to the amendment?
I need a,
Yeah, make a motion.
no,
Second.
just a
Second
second.
amendment.
Okay, it's been, the motion's been amended, and any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion that's amended, signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Anything else, Tom?
No, that's all I have.
Could you make sure I get emailed those resolutions? I haven't received any.
Yes, I will make sure that everybody get in,
And,
you got the emails.
and
Addresses.
Yes, yeah, she'll get.
And Tom, I think next month, I know Director Adcock asked you to do this, but I think we also need to have maybe it's me, you, and Director Adcock, but a conversation, a dialogue about just the workload and what this will add. And I just think we need to have a honest dialogue about that and how you're gonna approach it. Okay.
You don't need me anymore.
Report of the funding committee.
I'd like to pass that to Director Adcock's here tonight.
No report from the board chairman, any report from the secretary,
No report.
report from the treasurer.
Okay, I guess I've got 2 months to report on since I was absent last time. You go to 10A, that's the February balance sheet. As of the end of the month of February, there were $44,381,227 in assets of the fund. Of that amount, $43,967,000 was managed by Stevens, and there was a drop balance of $23,009,025. When you turn the page, I wanted to point out on line 3, the city sales tax contribution, and that is being made monthly. That's the 2/12 now of the $500,000. And then the property tax being the other significant revenue source during the month. But at this point of the year, it's primarily homestead. You'll see a bigger deposit in the next month as property taxes begin coming due. Benefit payments, $607,458 for the month before drop. Drop benefits paid out were $880,851. So the year-to-date loss before investment earnings was $1,266,729. Investment earnings, change in the value of the portfolio, primarily unrealized gain, $773,325 for a net loss of $493,404 for the month of February. Year-to-date, it was a loss of $19,616, so almost break even there. We moved to the March financial report. The value of assets was $44,162,621, with $43,342 of that managed by Stevens, and a drop balance of $22,895,083. On the following page, you'll see again the city sales tax contribution and the normal benefit payments. Much smaller drop payouts during the current month. It was $132,550. With the unrealized gain in March of $218,613, the net investment income for the year was a positive $2.3 million. Year-to-date, the loss to the fund is $238,221, just because the benefit payments have exceeded that, income in the investment returns. On the following page, we have the report of the non-beneficiary payments. $90 of attorney's fees. Do we have a, what is it? Okay, what was it?
A phone call, I believe, a phone call or an email.
Was that not for him coming to that last meeting?
That'll be billed this month.
Okay. Adine Garrett did pay $150. She's still behind June, July, September, and December. And I guess that concludes the financial report. I do want to add that we did submit the PRB report on the 26th. It was a March 26th, very extensive work to determine this year the base level benefits. The actuaries had tried to back into that number using the increases and the dates of retirement that are provided on the PRB report. Well, I called and talked to the PRB because the dates that we've always provided on the PRB report are the date that the member actually leaves the city, not the date that they entered the drop, okay? Well, for determination of base benefits, it should be the date that they entered the drop. So those increases that happened while they were in drop that they had the benefit of, the bottom line is the base benefit that the actuaries came up with was too high, okay? So what we did is we pulled every member's file who retired after drop went into effect to verify whether they had entered the drop, or just retired. And we backed the base benefits up to the date they entered drop. Both the PRB, Jody agreed that that was the right approach, the right thing to do. Took an awful lot of work, but the end result, we'll only have to do that one time, but that's what took so long in preparing that report. It's been submitted. We've not had any questions at all. We feel very confident that we actually exceeded the 80% minimum threshold for city contribution because they have that base too high to begin with. So it's a very lengthy report, and we didn't make a full copy of it. Bruce did approve it before I submitted it. We'd be happy to send it to you PDF if you want it. Just caution there is a lot of personal data in there, and we don't like that circulating around.
Let me ask you a question. When it was too high, what does that mean as far as the turnback money we got?
Well, there was
the
the requirement that the municipality must contribute at least 80% of the base level benefit in order to qualify for that additional money that replaced the guarantee fund. And so this year, for the first time, they had to actually determine what base level benefits were. They've never had to do that before. And the disconnect is that they really do, when we verify the date of retirement that we're putting on the report, they do want to be the date that the member actually leaves the city, quits working. But for purposes of base benefit calculation, the date of retirement is the date they enter the drop. And so we had, that for many officers is 10 years, you know, after, or before the date they actually left the city. And so that base level benefit was less than what they had calculated, just backing out the increases. And so that means that, the threshold that we had to meet is lower.
So the 120,000 that we contributed, the city contributed, could be lower.
Well, what we contributed to make sure we met it, we probably didn't have to contribute as much as we did, but that doesn't, I mean, it's in the fund and that's fine. I just, you know, going forward, they will not recalculate base benefits. So we've got the right number in there to know what threshold we have to hit to make sure that you're qualifying for that benefit.
I'm sure
Well-
you'll thank us later.
Oh, we already have.
So this report accurately depicts the base benefit amount.
It had an extra section that they've never had before, an extra tab that, aside from all the retiree payments and all, it had base level benefit for retirees.
Well, that's something we've never had before.
That's correct.
I think it's important that we have that.
Well, and we had to note out to, if we differed from what they had calculated, we had to explain how we came up with the amount we did. And so, I mean, really, almost every member that had retired after drop began, it was different. And we had the date of their drop, and we had the difference, and we sent that back to the actuaries, and they were able, based on the information we gave them, they were coming up with the same base level benefit we had. So we feel very confident in our information. It was a lot of work.
I make a motion to approve the financial report for February and March.
Second.
Then moving proper second, any further discussion, all those in favor signify by aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Report on change of membership status.
No, it's not.
That's not,
No change.
discussion of ACA 2411-411. What is that?
That's the
Well, everybody-
signature.
I know that's under the treasurer's thing, but I never asked for it to be put on the agenda, last month. It was placed on the actual request of Deborah.
Well,
And what it's about is, and this is when I was still secretary, I was asked to sign up.
When we switched banks.
Huh?
Yeah, when we switched banks, we had new
Right,
signature
right.
cards.
And I noticed your signature on there as well. And I thought that was a little bit strange, so I went home and looked at the statute, and the statute requires the chairman's signature and the secretary's signature. But it doesn't say anything about the treasurer's signature. So I called and asked about that. And that's how it got put on the agenda. But, I don't personally have any problem with you supplying her with a stamp or something.
Well, I think what happened is, because we looked back, because I couldn't remember, you know, I thought Bob had signed before, and I couldn't remember when my signature, because my signature's on all of our other bank accounts, and it's probably on your checks. But anyway, I think when that happened is when we went into the Goldman Fund, and we had to designate authorized signers for the investments and all that, and we made it the secretary and the finance director. And I think at that time, we were also updating, because we had a new secretary, we were signing, anyway, we signed the signature cards, and those were the signatures on there. And I think what we asked to do was, what I had asked was that we refer it up to legal to have somebody look and see who needed to be on there. I have no problem with not being a signatory on the account. I want it to be whoever it's supposed to be, but since we have to now update the cards again to change the secretary, we thought we should go ahead and get it right. We had to switch them for the new bank, and now we gotta do it, and I have no problem.
That was the only thing that, only reason I mentioned it is because I felt like it was important to comply with Arkansas law. And,
So we wanna refer that up to legal too, put that under his,
Yeah.
I wish I think.
I mean, I have no problem with not being a
I think
signatory.
we mentioned it to Mr. Carpenter last month, but.
I'm gonna tell you, that's why I brought the issue up. I mean, I think we really need to have a discussion about that. Just, I mean, and not because there were things he didn't have, I just think, you know, he's got a lot going and,
If he has to increase his workload to cover the work of this board, he'll have less time to take care of city business for him.
and it's already, you know, not the easiest thing. Anyway, I mean, I think y'all are gonna experience, you know, just, and that's why I really want him to have a conversation about the workload and how he's gonna handle it, because I think y'all gonna have certain expectations, and he needs to know that. But anyway, we'll add that to his list. Next item, board member topics, explore ideas for website.
Yes, if the board chooses to get someone to create a police pension website, is that something, it would be a minimal sort of cost, but is my question, first of all, is that something that would need to be put out for bid or not?
I think it would depend on what you thought the cost was gonna be.
I've talked to 2 people, and the cost would be probably $500 to set up a website, and they have viewed Steve's to set up a website with as much up to all that he has on there. And of course, in addition to that would be about $80 for URL and hosting annually, $80 annually.
And the 500's annual too?
No,
or
no,
is
no,
that not-
500 is a one-time.
One
fee.
time, okay.
And then
That would
to,
require it.
for her to administer it would be maximum of $100 a month.
Would this be an official pension website, pension board website? Because if the pension is going to pay that expense, I think it would need to be an official site of the pension.
Well, there is a site that's not an official police pension board website, and my opinion is it needs to be a police pension board website that is, of course, directed by the board, which means directed by the members, and quite frankly, well, I'll just leave it. That would be my suggestion.
As to the question, if that type of cost would not have to be.
No, I think the board could, if you have 2, you know, how you choose between,
Well, first of all, I said, what I said was I talked to 2. The first one, well, it was considerably more. This particular person, and I have an email from her here, and Kathy, if we need to, we can get copies of it. Her name, I have never personally met her. I know her and know of her, but I've never personally met her. I've talked to her 2 or 3 times regarding this. Melody Rawls, she actually runs the Arkansas Democrat Gazette's blog website. She emailed me here and basically said there's below are a few link sites I've worked on for the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. On all of these, I've either worked on them with another designer or web programmer or done the whole thing myself. And there's probably 20 of them here, arkansasonline.com. I mean, it goes on and on. It's,
So it's 500 to set it up?
She said it's-
Then it's $80 for the annual fee, then a maximum of $100 a month to run it.
But she said, and then I'm telling you what she said, she said a maximum, it'd probably be a maximum of $100 a month to administer.
Is that gonna include her coming in to videotape the?
We didn't discuss her videotaping it. I think that could be addressed at any particular time, but it does include, my understanding is under the administering part of it for her to post it.
Well, I would suggest if we're gonna go down this path, that, you know, we need some type of agreement, with her, you know, what, you know, she might wanna submit an official proposal. I would, it'd be interesting if she's gonna videotape it and all for under $100 a month.
Now, no, we did not talk about it, and let me make that clear, we did not talk about her physically coming in and videotaping. But what we did talk about is administering it, which, and again, it goes back to what you just said. We need more specifics. I didn't know if it would.
I don't think you have to bid it, but we would want some type of proposal and then draft an agreement, you know, that, you know, maybe for years, and then we could review it, and that's how I would do it.
Do we need a motion to that, or can we just put a consent to that and come back next
I
month?
think you can ask her to submit the proposal, you don't need any kind of action, I wouldn't
Yeah.
think until we're ready to.
And then just put it on the agenda.
Okay.
It may be where she can also come in and, you know, talk to the board about it. I'll be glad to do that.
Okay. I don't think, did we do the minutes? Did I skip that?
No, we haven't approved it yet.
Okay, I'm sorry. Tom came in and got me rattled, I guess. Okay, you have, 2 sets of minutes before you. Let's take the February first.
Didn't we approve the February minutes pending, I thought this board approved the February minutes.
Actually, I think what we approved was the amendment. And I don't think we ever actually approved the minutes, did we?
I think we did. I think what this board voted to do was to amend it and then approve it pending the amendment. And then I resigned as secretary, and then Lee Harris took it over, so I don't really see much need in approving the February minutes again. But
The minutes, the March minutes read, a vote was taken on the motion to amend the February minutes and passed with unanimous vote with the exception of Mr. Young, who voted against the motion.
Right, it was a motion to amend, there was never a motion to approve, but I will make a motion to approve the February minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, further discussion?
I have something in it, we're going to go through that process. I believe that the February minutes should be amended further to allow me as a board member to have a statement that I made.
Hold on just a second.
I thought we were discussing the February minutes.
But are you making a motion? Because there's already a motion and a second.
Can I not make a sub-motion?
No.
Well, then I'd just like to state then that whether I can make it in the form of a motion or not, because it's open for discussion, it is my belief that any board member, any member of this board has the right to have himself quoted in the minutes. Now, if someone else wants to add something, some other statement that he quoted and have it quoted, then that's fine and dandy. But I think every board member has the right to be quoted if he requested in the minutes. And I requested it in this instance. That's all I
Okay.
have to say.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the February minutes as amended, signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
How was there, was that unanimous vote, Mr. Chairman, the secretary's gonna need to know that?
I did not hear anyone oppose. I did ask for any opposition. The next item is approval of the March minutes.
Well, I've got a question on those.
Okay.
And it's just a minor thing. It shows Don Wood was being absent, and as I recall, he was just late, he wasn't absent.
I'm listed on back in there where he showed up at like 10:45.
Yeah, page 6 of 6.
6 of 6.
Line 206.
Well, if you,
Yeah. Came
well,
in.
shouldn't he be shown his presence then?
When we took the roll, he wasn't here, so that's why I listed as absent. When we took the roll call, and I listed back there when time he showed up.
I always thought that as long as the member showed up, that he was to be shown as present. I mean, well, I've never been late to a meeting, but I believe in Paris has come in late a couple of times. I don't really recall, but as long as you're here, I think you ought to be shown present. I mean, I don't know if Don agrees, but that's what I think.
I don't see a problem. I think that their minutes are done both ways. But I would suggest this, I mean, I think it makes sense, is if someone does get here late, is
Yeah,
just
just
show
show the
present
time.
and arrive.
Yeah.
Someone what?
I think we can just amend these and show, what time he arrived or
Under present.
under present.
And then there's just a typo for treasurer her, it should have an R at the end. That's it.
So I'm not even sure we need to amend these, I think we can just can reflect, and like, well, I guess that this will be the official record.
I move that we approve them as amended. Or is, I guess do we have to approve the amendment first? I move that we accept the amendment recommended to move Dawn Woods to present, showing arrival time of 10:45.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now, all those in favor of the, or is there a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Motion, opposed? Motion carries. Fund member comments? Any comments from our esteemed members?
No, sir.
Other business?
I'd just like to compliment our two, members over here for running for the pension board. And, I wish you the best of luck. And I didn't see you sitting over there, James, so the meeting's already started, but I certainly, since you're gonna be taking over my seat, I certainly wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, Steve.
And Kevin is a fine fella as well, and I wish him the best of luck too.
And I see the ballot, is there any update, anything you need to report on that?
No, I just attached it so you'd see the names submitted.
All right,
There is another one, Steve showed an interest in buying his computers, so,
What we did, like we've done in the past, is we calculated the, depreciation, assuming I think a 3-year life is what we did. And so, if Steve and Dee would like to keep his computers, all we've done in the past is have them pay that, net book value. And I think the board has normally approved authorizing that. So, I don't know if you've decided whether or not you wanna do it, but we could just authorize it if you do.
Well, I don't want the desktop, bring it back. The little netbook, I don't mind, I'd like to keep it, but, not the desktop.
Well, if the board would just authorize us to,
Work with IT and get it.
turn it over, well, I think we've done a calculation depending on what he decides to keep,
I make a motion to authorize that.
I second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Thank you.
Opposed? Any other business?
Lee, was there something, Debbie, was there something you asked Lee to place on there? Wasn't there something Lee was supposed to talk about?
Well, it was just the computer.
Oh,
That's all
okay.
I emailed him about
Okay.
to make sure that got.
Okay.
We're almost to get out.
All right, I move that we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second, I second.
All those in favor signify by
This is
aye.
the, y'all, this is the fastest meeting we've
I
had.
tell you, we